The clock on the sterile white wall blinked 12:32 p.m. The room smelled of antiseptic and quiet despair. Machines hummed. Monitors blinked, not with urgency, but with dull routine. 9-year-old Amara Martin lay still beneath a pink blanket covered in cartoon stars. Her small chest rose and fell shallowly. Tubes and wires wrapped around her like fragile vines. For 7 long days, she hadn't moved, spoken, or opened her eyes. 1 week earlier, she'd been laughing at the breakfast table with her father. Minutes later, she collapsed while tying her shoes. Doctors called it acute cerebral shutdown, a condition so rare that even the best neurologists could only shrug. She might wake up, one said grimly. She might not, another added. Her father, Elijah Martin, sat beside her, his large hands dwarf around hers. A construction worker who built bridges and lifted steel beams for a living, Elijah had never felt weight like this, the unbearable heaviness of doing nothing. Nurses whispered about his devotion. Doctors called it desperation. But Elijah didn't care. This was his little girl. He wasn't leaving her side, not for anyone. Then came Devin Langston, a billionaire tech mogul who owned half the hospitals in the region. He arrived unannounced, flanked by cameras, PR staff, and bodyguards. Reading about Amara's condition in the local paper, he saw not tragedy, but opportunity. He promised experimental procedures, AI-powered diagnostics, even robotic stimulation systems, all free of charge. "We'll upgrade her brain like an iPhone," he said with a laugh that echoed like arrogance. Elijah's jaw tightened. "She's not a machine," he said softly. "She's a child." Langston smirked. "Emotion makes you weak. Science wins." But the machines, blinking with expensive confidence, did nothing. One by one, the foreign specialists packed up and left. Langston stopped visiting. Elijah stayed. Each night, he read her favorite bedtime stories, rubbed lotion on her feet, and told her about the stars. "Venus is bright tonight," he whispered once. "Remember how you said the moon listens when no one else does?" 7 days passed, hope thin like breath on glass. Then, near midnight, a nurse knocked gently. "Mr. Martin," she said, "there's a boy outside. Says he wants to help." Elijah frowned. "What boy?" In the lobby sat a barefoot black child, maybe 11 years old, in a tattered gray hoodie and torn jeans. His eyes, deep, still, unafraid, met Elijah's. "Are you Amara's father?" the boy asked. "Yes." "Who are you?" "I can help her," he said simply. Elijah blinked. "You what?" "I can wake her up." It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. Elijah sighed, exhausted. "Son, doctors couldn't help her. Billionaires couldn't. You're just a kid." The boy didn't flinch. "Sometimes it takes someone small to remind people of big things," he said softly. "She's not gone. She's listening. But she doesn't know if it's safe to come back." Elijah's throat went dry. "Safe. She needs what the hospital doesn't have." The boy continued. "She needs your truth, not your strength. The words you've been hiding." Elijah hesitated. "Who are you? Can I sit with her?" Every instinct said no, but something deeper, older, nodded. "All right," he whispered. The boy stepped to the bedside and laid his hand on Amara's head. After a moment of silence, he said, "She knows you're here, but she needs to know why you're still here." Elijah's heart cracked. His lips trembled. "I wasn't there, baby," he whispered. "I missed your breakfast, your smile, the signs that something was wrong. I should have held you longer, told you how proud I was." His tears fell onto her blanket. "Please, come back. I'll never miss another second. I promise." The monitor blipped. Once. Then again. The nurse gasped. "She's listening," the boy said quietly, then turned to leave. "Wait!" Elijah called. "What's your name?" He paused in the doorway. "Isaiah," he said. "I'll be back tomorrow." And he disappeared into the hall, like a shadow that didn't belong to this world. That night, Amara's finger twitched again. No one saw but Elijah. He didn't sleep. He just whispered her name until sunrise. When the morning nurse arrived, she shook her head. No boy came in. No one by that name signed in or showed on security. But Elijah knew what he'd seen and felt. He replayed Isaiah's words again and again. She needs your truth. That evening, Elijah did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed. Not elegant words, just raw pain. God, please, don't let this be it. Hours passed. Then came a quiet knock. Isaiah was back. Same frayed hoodie. Same bare feet. Same calm eyes. I said I'd come back, he murmured. Elijah rose quickly. Who are you? Where do you come from? I go where I'm needed, Isaiah said, and I remember what others forget. He approached the bed and gently touched Amara's wrist. She's closer today. Your voice reached her, but now she needs something else. What? Elijah whispered. The song, Isaiah said. Elijah froze. What song? The one you used to sing before the fire, Isaiah said softly. Before the silence. The world tilted. That lullaby, his grandmother's, was something he hadn't sung since the night his wife died. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Isaiah began. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again. Elijah shook. I can't. Yes, you can, Isaiah said, because she still remembers it. And so do you. Elijah closed his eyes. Memories flooded Sunday nights, bedtime stories, laughter. He sat beside her bed and began to sing. His voice cracked, rough, human. There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again. The monitor beeped faster. Her fingers twitched. The nurse gasped. Isaiah smiled. You gave her something to come back to. Now she knows the way. Elijah turned to him, tears streaming. Why are you helping us? Isaiah's gaze softened. Because I was once a child like her, alone in a bed like this. No one came. No one sang. I promised that if I ever could, I'd change that. Elijah fell to his knees. You're an angel. Isaiah didn't answer. He just whispered to Amara, You've been found. Then he turned to leave. Will you come again tomorrow? Elijah asked. Isaiah smiled faintly. If she needs me, but I think your voice is stronger now. When Elijah ran after him, the hallway was empty. Security cameras showed nothing. But Amara's breathing deepened, her color returned, and for the first time in 7 days, Elijah smiled. The ICU was quieter than usual. The machines hummed softly, steady and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of a waiting world. But in room 317, something had shifted. The air felt warmer, alive, charged with something no machine could measure. Elijah hadn't moved from his daughter's side all night. His eyes were red, his hands rough, but he kept singing that same lullaby, over and over, voice raw with faith and exhaustion. And then at 6:02 a.m., Amar's right hand moved. It wasn't a twitch, not a reflex. It reached, slowly, shakily, for his. Elijah froze, staring in disbelief, before collapsing into tears. Baby girl, he choked, clutching her tiny fingers. You hear me, don't you? It should have been impossible, but it was happening. Doctors rushed in, eyes wide, confusion painted across their faces. Neurologically, this doesn't make sense, murmured Dr. Lester, flipping through notes. There's been no new treatment, no medication, nothing to explain this. The nurse beside her whispered, Then what do we call it? Dr. Lester hesitated. An anomaly. But Elijah smiled through his tears. Call it whatever you want, he said softly. I call it a miracle. That afternoon, sunlight streamed through the hospital windows for the first time in days. Elijah stepped outside, breathing fresh air that felt lighter somehow. The world didn't seem so cruel anymore. He walked to the corner store and bought a small notebook, the kind with spiral binding and blank pages. He would fill it with stories, songs, and truths he'd been too afraid to say before. Because Isaiah was right. His daughter didn't need miracles made of money. She needed his voice, his presence, his heart. When Elijah returned to the room, something new waited for him. A small folded note taped to the window, written in crooked blue pen. Sometimes the healing comes before the waking. Don't give up on her. She hears you. Keep singing. Elijah pressed it to his chest. No one had seen Isaiah. No one had let him in. But somehow he had been there. That night, Amara's breathing deepened. Her color returned. And just past midnight, Elijah heard it. Faint, fragile, but real. Daddy. The word shattered him. He dropped the notebook and rushed to her side. Amara, baby, can you hear me? Her lips trembled. You came back. I never left, Elijah whispered, voice breaking. A tear slid down her cheek. Where's the boy? Elijah froze. You saw him? She nodded weakly. He said he was the echo that found me. I couldn't see anything. Everything was dark. Then I heard his voice, and yours. He told me, your daddy's waiting on the other side of the dark. So I followed the light. Elijah's chest ached. He led you home. Amara's smile was faint but pure. He smelled like dust and bread, she whispered. He said his name was Isaiah. Tears rolled freely down Elijah's face. Sweetheart, he was real. She nodded. He said he didn't need wings to fly, just faith. By morning, word had spread through the hospital. Doctors, nurses, interns. Everyone whispered about the girl in 317 who woke from a coma with no medical reason. Some called it impossible. Others, divine. One intern even checked the security footage. He rewound, paused, zoomed in frame by frame. But Isaiah was nowhere to be found. The camera showed Elijah alone, singing, crying, but no boy. That kid, the intern muttered, goosebumps rising, was never on camera. Meanwhile, Elijah and Amara sat together, watching cartoons, her color returning more each hour. She turned to him, smiling. Daddy, tell me the story again. What story, baby? The girl who whispered to the moon. He froze. He hadn't told that story in years, not since before her mother died, but she smiled knowingly. Isaiah told me. Elijah felt something deep in his chest stir, a mix of wonder and peace. She hadn't forgotten. Neither had he. That night, as Amara slept, he sat by her bed writing story after story into his notebook. He would never let silence steal his words again. Close to midnight, he stepped into the dim hallway for air and froze. You did good, Mr. Elijah. The voice was soft, familiar. He turned. Isaiah stood there, barefoot, dirt on his face, hoodie frayed, but smiling. Isaiah, Elijah whispered. She doesn't need me any more, the boy said quietly. She asked for you, and now she has you. Elijah's eyes glistened. Will I ever see you again? Isaiah tilted his head. Maybe, or maybe someone else will. What do I owe you? Elijah asked. Isaiah's smile was small and knowing. Tell her stories every night, even when she's grown. Never stop singing. Then he turned and walked toward the end of the hall and vanished. No sound, no door, just gone. Elijah didn't chase him. He just stood there, heart full, whispering, thank you. 3 months later, Amara was walking again. Her steps were shaky, but her spirit was unstoppable. She hummed that same lullaby during therapy, and each time she stumbled, she whispered, Isaiah. Elijah sold his car, his lake house, even his investments, not to buy more, but to build something. He opened a center called Voices at Dawn, a free music and art space for children recovering from trauma or illness. Its slogan read, where silence ends and healing begins. On the front wall, Amara painted a mural, a small barefoot boy with his hand outstretched toward the light. Beneath it, in bright blue paint, she wrote, he didn't have wings. He had faith. Reporters asked Elijah countless times, who was he? Where is he now? He always gave the same answer. His name is Isaiah. I don't know where he is, but I know where he was when it mattered. Some laughed. Others rolled their eyes. But few wiped their tears. Because sometimes faith makes more sense than logic ever will. One evening, Elijah and Amara were walking home when they heard a harmonica playing under a broken street lamp near the old train station. An old man sat there with a cardboard sign that read, You're not lost. You're just not finished yet. Amara gasped, Daddy, look. Elijah knelt beside the man. Where'd you hear that phrase? The old man smiled, eyes twinkling. from a boy years ago. Said he traveled light, carried only truth. Name was Isaiah. Amara's face lit up. He's still out there. Elijah nodded slowly. Yeah, baby, I think he is. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She stood at her window, moonlight washing over her face. Elijah joined her. What's on your mind? He asked. What if Isaiah finds another kid who's lost? What if she's scared like I was? Elijah brushed her hair back gently. Then I hope someone nearby is singing. She smiled. Then we should teach the world to sing. And they did. Together, they launched a channel called Isaiah's Echo, sharing songs, stories, and messages of hope. Within weeks, millions of people listened, patients, parents, strangers, writing messages that all ended the same way. I thought I was lost. But maybe I'm just not finished yet. A year later, at the Voices at Dawn Center, Amara stood on stage and sang Isaiah's song before a crowd. Her voice was clear, trembling with light. As the last note faded, Elijah saw him, a boy at the back of the room, barefoot, smiling. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. Then he was gone. No thunder, no flash, just faith. And Elijah finally understood, miracles aren't always loud. Sometimes they're the quiet things, a father's voice, a child's hand, a song remembered. Sometimes they come barefoot, carrying nothing but love and light. Because Isaiah didn't just wake Amara up. He reminded the world that faith still breathes.